Now, Washington Mornings on the Mall. 105.9 FM. At AM 630. WMAL.
7:07 on WMAL. Coming up at 7:35, we'll be joined by national security expert Katie McFarland. And then we'll talk to Derek Tobacco, who knows an awful lot about how to clean up after disasters. We'll talk to him, how are things going after the cleanup of Superstorm Sandy? That's coming up at 8:35. Brian Wilson alongside Larry O'Connor.
And joining us now is the former Republican National Committee chairman, also former Lieutenant Governor of the state of Maryland, and former guest host right here on Mornings on the Mall.
An all-round sweet fellow.
The one and only Michael Steele. Chairman Steele, thanks for joining us this morning.
It's great to be with you, fellas. Brian and Larry, how's it going?
Hey,
Going
good.
well.
You know, when you were last here, you said, you were still contemplating whether you might run for governor of Maryland, and now here you are coming back. Clearly, you're here to make an announcement. Are you ready to throw your hat in, Chairman?
No announcement, fellas. Not yet. Just don't push a brother so hard.
But are you seriously contemplating that?
I'm looking at it. We'll see what the numbers tell us and just how the whole thing lays out.
Well, okay, but when you say you'll see how the numbers, that indicates that you may have been doing some polling?
Oh, no. Well, there's possibility. I'm trying to get it together now. We're supposed to be doing something a little bit later on in the summer.
So maybe potentially later.
The man said, "Don't push a brother so hard."
Well, but this is my job. This is so.
Yeah, Ron and I go way back on that front.
The fact that you are out there actually considering this possibility. Well, that's very interesting. I think news has been made here.
No. I love my state. I think that there's the potential in Maryland is huge, and I look at the last 8 years. I look at the tax increases. I look at some of the things they've done to drive jobs away and opportunity out the door. And you just kind of say, okay, can you contribute something? So we'll weigh it.
But I remember asking you this question a while back, and it was like, no way in hell.
Well,
All right, future gubernatorial candidate Michael Steele is our guest.
Listen to you.
Listen, there's so much to talk about, and I appreciate you playing ball with us on that one. Let's go to the current scandals that we're looking at out of this White House and the Department of Justice. I think the one that resonates with most people, you might disagree with me, but I think the IRS scandal is the one that resonates with everyday Americans. You hear about the IRS being used as a partisan tool to give special scrutiny specifically to conservative groups that have the word Tea Party in their name, applying for nonprofit status. Now, the vast majority of these groups all sort of popped up when you were chairman of the Republican Party. I remember you marshaling them all for the 2010 elections. A lot of this happened on your watch. Do you have firsthand knowledge in your role as chairman of the RNC of these groups having problems with the IRS at that time?
What I was made aware of at various points along the way in talking with activists was they felt that the process was long, and they thought that it was sort of being dragged out. And we didn't have any inclination to the degree that we've subsequently found out of what the IRS was really doing, that they were specifically being targeted. But there were members, particularly here in this area, that were concerned about why it would take so long and all the steps. I remember one of the members, activists, we were just sort of talking about things and said, I had to provide all this extra paperwork, and so, there was suspicion something was going on, but no one really knew what it was, certainly not to the extent that they were being singled out or targeted. And what makes this, and you've heard a lot of people use the word chilling, and it really is. It's not just chilling, it's just un-American. And I think a lot of people, as you noted, Larry, right at the top, resonate with that because we all pay taxes and we all are subject to the IRS's whims. And if it's conservative groups today, who will it be tomorrow? And so that's something that I think has much more resonance with voters and will make this thing last a lot longer than the administration wants it to.
Our guest is Michael Steele, Maryland gubernatorial candidate. And
listen to you.
Bob Dole was on the Sunday Talks.
Yeah.
And he says that, the GOP should basically close for repairs. He says, there would be no place for a guy like me or even Ronald Reagan, guys who are willing at times to reach across the aisle and work with the other side. What do you think about the things that Bob Dole said?
Bravo, Bob Dole. I think Bob Dole is absolutely right. I even made the comment about Ronald Reagan when I was chairman of the party, that we did not want to become the party that even Ronald Reagan could not make it through a primary. and he couldn't. So Ronald Reagan, that everybody knew and loved and idolizes, on the last day he left office, that guy could not win a Republican primary today, and I dare anyone to say otherwise. His views, some of the things he did as governor and as president on taxes, on some of the immigration, obviously, which is ironic because, when you look at Ronald Reagan's position on immigration, that was where the Republican Party was. George Bush tried to augment and fix that. Got beat down on it, and Governor Perry, during the presidential race of 2012, laid out a cogent response and actions that he'd taken as governor of a border state, and pretty much, got booed off the stage for it. So,
but a lot of people look at the situation. They say, well, the reason it's like that way is because we have these Tea Party elements in the Republican Party right now who just don't believe in compromise. A lot of people will say, maybe we compromised too much over the years. What do you say to those folks?
Well, look, number one, the Tea Party, people need to stop confusing Tea Party and blaming every sin that they, disagree with on the Tea Party. The Tea Party, at its core, and I know because I was with them in the room on many occasions talking about where they were coming from. It's an economic argument. It's a constitutional argument. Yes, there are concerns about border security and things like that, but those aren't big drivers for the Tea Party. There's a lot of this movement that has been hijacked, if you will, and a lot of other attitudes and views have been glommed on in many respects. And so that's something they have to deal with. But I can tell you, in working with the folks that I worked with at the time in 2009 and 2010, they weren't sitting there, screaming up and down saying, oh, no border, security or no border controls or no, we've got to, avoid or do too much on border security, et cetera. Immigration wasn't one of those drivers for them.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be clear about that. Number two, I think that by and large, the positions on immigration have been laid out. We know what the failings and shortcomings were and the mistakes were made from the past. And so you've had since then Bush and Perry and others try to make those corrections. When you can't even make the course correction on something as important as immigration, then you've come off the rails on this issue, and we've got to get back on the rails because it's important to a lot of people.
Chairman Michael Steele, you know our clock here. You've actually co-hosted the show a couple of times. We've got to take a quick break for traffic. Can you I got one more question I got to ask you. Can you hold on? Great, thanks. I appreciate it. Still on the line with us is Chairman Michael Steele. He was the former chairman of the RNC and, of course, the former lieutenant governor of the Free State, Maryland here. And Michael Steele, you're a fellow Catholic. I know that the life issue is very important to you. Mm-hmm. And given that, I was actually kind of surprised to see that you came down a little hard on the new candidate for lieutenant governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, your neighboring state there. E.W. Jackson is, listen, the man's a pastor. He's never held public office before. And some of his comments as a pastor in support of the life issue is now coming under fire by all the usual characters on the left. You know who these people are who bring up these comments and they try to, twist them and make, try to demonize somebody before he's even been able to defend himself. Why are you coming down hard on Mr. Jackson?
How did I come down hard?
Well,
let me tell you exactly what I said. All I said was when you roll out these types of campaigns, you got to roll out with the effort to get in front of the noise. And so instead of talking about introducing him to the state of Virginia, introducing his ideas, why he would be a good lieutenant governor of the state, we're off on tangents. And the party has got to get over this idea that you can just put anybody up and run them. This is not the political environment has changed so much that just is not reality anymore.
So, do you think that it was a bad idea for Virginia to have a convention process?
Yeah, I do. I think you should always have an open process, open primary process where every Republican can participate, and then you can sit back and go, okay, so this is the decision of the party. This is not the decision of all the Republicans in the state. It was a subgroup of Republicans in the state. And that's what Lieutenant Governor Bowling was talking about, and that's what he was concerned about. And so you set yourself up when you're looking like you're trying to get a particular outcome in a primary process. I've just always been open to open primaries. Look, Reverend Jackson, I know him. I've worked with him. He's a good man and all of that. I'm just saying we're now focused on stuff that has nothing to do with why he should be a good lieutenant governor, why he will be a good lieutenant governor of the state, and the kind of campaign that the top of the ticket, Cuccinelli, wants to run and need to run in a state like Virginia that was won by the President of the United States not once but twice.
All right, I got to ask you about another big developing story in Republican Party politics. Michele Bachmann says she's not going to run again.
Yeah.
Are you surprised by this?
No, not really. I think Michele looked at her seat, looked at the opportunity to hold that seat, and found it challenging. And I think she's being realistic. I think her internal numbers were showing some weakness there for her, and this would have been a very difficult election. And I think that, talking to some of the folks who have supported her and know her, it all boils down to what have you done for us lately? And voters are looking for elected officials to produce and to show results. And I think that's why you saw in the last few months Michele really kind of, trying to get out in front and lead on some things. And I just think it was just too much for her. I mean, and that's just the political reality of it. I mean, again, I try to tell these candidates all the time, you can't play the game the way you used to. The voters are smarter, they're much more engaged, and their expectations are high, and they hold you to them.
She's a real popular figure with the grassroots. What, if you were giving her advice, what do you think she should do next?
I think she should be a part of the conversation of how the party grows itself and really expands the opportunities for the party. I think those conservative voices need to be out there that redefines the future in a way that is takes us back to being the party of assimilation, the party of opportunity, the party of growth. And I think that she can be one of those voices. We'll see what she decides to do. She'll probably write a book and do all those other wonderful things as well. She's a tax attorney, may go back to law. But I think she's got some great opportunities to really help the party move forward. And it would be nice, particularly as we started the conversation talking about Bob Dole, to have her voice be one of those voices that sort of says to the Bob Doles of the world, this is your party too. You've got to be a part of it if we're going to be a strong party in the future.
Michael Steele, thanks so much for joining us, and thanks for inching closer and closer to your official announcement for your candidacy for the governorship of Maryland. Michael Steele.